Today is July 21st, 2018. I'm Tom, I'm here with John, and today we're going to be talking about how a person's mood affects the way they see themselves and the way they interpret everything that happens to them. One thing I've noticed is that my mood has a surprisingly large impact on the thoughts that I think and the topics that I focus on. And a lot of the times we think that the environment we're in or the activity that we're doing is causing us to be in a good mood or a bad mood. But a lot of the time it's some internal thing that's making our mood good or bad. And then we think, oh, well, my environment is messed up and that's why I'm feeling so bad. That's what's causing this bad mood that I'm in.
Not to say that the environment doesn't cause people to have bad moods. There are some things that, tick people off. Like, for example, if something's not locked at night or whatever, if you have, severe obsessive compulsive disorder and you need to make sure the door is locked, if it's not locked, it can, cause serious mood issues where you just feel this anxiety and paranoia and for whatever. There's a whole series of negative feelings that you could feel. But what's interesting is that some people can survive and be okay in very stressful situations, or what might be stressful for a more anxious person, and they're totally fine. So it seems obvious that people have varying degrees of anxiety and ability to cope with stress, and I think that really matters when we think about what makes us upset. I think it really matters for each person to know of what their tendencies are in certain situations, or, to be aware of, I have a little bit of anxiety. It's probably not the biggest deal in the world that this person looked at me weird. To understand that you have a certain tendency to view things in a way that might not be in line with reality. It seems to be really important just for internal thoughts and dialogue, too, and just everything that happens. If someone's in a really good mood, their outlook on the world is vibrant and very different than someone who's and there's a lot of metaphors that people use when they're anxious or depressed, and they feel like the world's closing in on them, and they feel very stuck and trapped in their own bodies, and there's just weight pushing you down. You can't get up, you can't move. And as people feel in a really good mood, they want to travel the world. It's so easy to move around and to exercise and to get out there, and tasks that might cause people stress or anxiety are so easy to do, and it's almost fun to do things like work and clean up the house. But the thing is that self is the same throughout those moods. So your perception of reality can be very different depending on if you have a good mood or a bad mood in that present moment. And so what I came to find recently is that it's very important to be aware that if you're in a bad mood, things will look and feel worse than they actually are. And it's interesting because sometimes I can trick myself out of having a bad mood. If I feel just it's so hard for me to get this work done, or feel like I'm really lazy, I can maybe just imagine what it would be like if I had a really good mood, at this present moment. And then it kind of opens the possibility that I can be in a good mood all the time. You know what I mean? It's that I can choose to be in a good mood, or that if I just imagine how would I act if I was in a really good mood right now, and then do that and then force myself through willpower to do that, then that actually is a feedback loop and makes my mood better. So I don't know. It's all just these things that I've been thinking about, of how mood interacts with how you perceive. We can change our mood based on how we act in reality.
when you're in a good mood, everything seems easier and things don't really seem so difficult anymore. And you suddenly, it's kind of like you're more ambitious because you have more
Yeah.
energy. But then when you're in a bad mood, it's like you become focused on yourself and you're just, your priority is just to relieve your suffering right now. So it's like first you have to make yourself feel better, then you can move on with your life and do the things that you would normally do.
The thing is, like, when we feel that bad mood, when we're in a bad mood, like we were saying before, it's not like if we eat more candy that'll make our mood better. It makes our mood better in a certain way, but not in a lasting way. We have this need, if someone's in a really bad mood, to quickly feel better. But then the question is, how do we go about that? It seems like many times the impulse is to go after something that relieves a certain aspect, but doesn't relieve the cause. It's like you relieve a symptom, maybe, but there's like a much larger piece of the pie that's getting totally ignored, and making that pie even bigger by not addressing it.
It seems like when adults are stuck in a bad mood, they're kind of transformed into little kids. At least for me, like I feel like I turn into an immature brat when I'm in a really bad mood. It's like I'm complaining to myself, I'm complaining to other people. I'm just like stuck, hung up on the fact that I'm suffering. It's like my consciousness is clogged up and I can't really move forward.
And when you're an adult, you think back on the experience you just had a day ago or whatever, and you think, oh my gosh, that was so childish. I can't believe those things that I thought were such a big deal were it really is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. I can't believe I was so worked up about that. And then like a week later, you can be right in the same spot and think that the world's closing in on you and totally believe it. It's like our brain can trick how like truth almost. It's so easy to forget that a bad mood makes you into like a little child, because it feels so good in a way. It feels so good to feel like the world's against you, and it's very attractive somehow. It's like it's almost like that candy or something that provides a quick thrill, but isn't good in the long run. That sense of slipping into a younger, less mature, more emotional part of yourself. I tend to get that when I feel like betrayed by someone or something makes me angry, not angrier, but just like annoyed, and I feel like I want to get back at that person or say something that's going to upset them, but it's so childish and completely isn't going to help the situation at all. But it's like very alluring to go into that space and start thinking about, oh, how am I going to get that person back, or that space of like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I haven't done anything today. I didn't wake up at the right time. Like that type of self-hate talk is so childish, really, when you think about it. Like, what is that accomplishing? I mean, yeah, it really, and that's one thing that's really surprising me a lot as I get older, is just how much child is in adults. How much of a child, like, there's just so much immaturity within grown adults. And it's like we all walk around with these masks on as if everything's okay. And inside, we have these internal dialogues that are literally like 8-year-olds. Like having this chatter about, oh my gosh, like, what's going to happen, blah, 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 I don't know. Just these worries and gossipy things that we think and complaints that we would scold a child for saying. I would say, well, that's not good to think that, just to say that. It's almost just like we're still children, but we just figured out how to cover it all up and not say it out loud. I feel like it's like layers, such as layers of an onion. We just keep on putting more and more layers over this kernel, but the kernel is the child, which I think was like a big part of Freudian psychology, like what happens as a child, how we were raised as a reflection of who we are. Like, it's almost like when we have a bad mood, we're diving down into those layers until we get down to the center, which is the most immature aspect of ourselves. But then when we're in a really good mood, we swim up to the outer layers of competency and emotional control and intellectual prowess, and we're able to like master ourselves much more clearly. We'll still see the child inside, but it'll be very distant and so easy to control. But sometimes that child, it can be extremely, almost like gravity gets turned up to 1,000, and you just get tugged into that immature child. It just feels so right to go there somehow. And then you have to like exercise so much control to stay at the outer layer. That's how it feels like to me.
There's something appealing about regressing into that childish mode. There's something that's just, it satisfies a certain part of the mind. A certain part of our emotionality gets satisfied. Yeah. A lot of it is just like whining that something is unjust. It's a profound impatience for the natural vicissitudes of life. Real life is very slow. We often have to wait for certain problems to go away. If we're sick, we have to wait for the sickness to go away. If we're feeling uncomfortable, we have to wait a certain amount of time for that discomfort to go away. But until it goes away, there's an impatience that we feel. Part of us just wants to whine about how unjust it is that we have to wait, that we don't get like immediate relief.
Yeah, but the irony is, though, that the more we get that immediate relief, the less resilient we are to fight against it. For example, kids who get everything they want tend to be the biggest whiners later in life, like stereotypical brat. And it's almost like we need to train our brains so much to be able to resist and to be able to be resilient in stressful situations, in situations that might cause emotional suffering. And the people who are most successful in life are the ones that are able to fend off that emotional pain. That's another thing that's pretty important in social life, or life in general for human beings, is the more one can control. Like, it's not, I have a tendency to think it's all about intelligence and how smart you are, but it seems like a lot of it just has to do with your emotional intelligence. How much can you take emotionally? How much stress can you take? How much can you put yourself to do? And the people who can push themselves just have such a huge advantage compared to those that have to stop after a certain amount of suffering or can't take it. You know what I mean?
Why are certain people better at that than other people?
I think a lot of it has to do with practice. A lot of it has to do with the childhood. Like, if as a child, if you were taught to control your emotions a lot, if you were taught to wait. Like, that famous marshmallow test describes the idea of, like, a child has the option to have one marshmallow now or two marshmallows a minute later. And the test followed these kids for years and years, and it turned out that the kids who waited, were able to wait for the higher reward, did better in life. But yeah, just that idea of being able to stave off the immediate pleasures in replacement for the longer term joy or whatever is a really important skill to develop. But it's also, I think, genetic as well.